So now we're moving into that uncomfortable space, but space that we really have to go into, and this is where we're actually managing our debt or trying to manage our debt. If you can't make a payment for a variety of reasons, whatever it might be, losing your job, etc., then you definitely want to contact your creditors and to see if there's something that you can something that can be worked out. Letting them know is important. It's always one of those things where you're afraid to do it, but it's important to be kind of upfront about this in order to secure a better deal so far as repayment is concerned. So, for example, if your automobiles, if you ignore it, your car is repossessed, you own the difference between the selling price and the debt, the outstanding debt that's out there. So it's not something that you can just quote unquote walk away from. There are charges that would be associated with that, especially if you're talking about an expensive vehicle and you haven't had it for very long. Because again, after the first year, the value of most vehicles drop by 20%, sometimes more. So there are different debt collection practices that are out there. There's regulations, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. It regulates debt collection agencies. If debtor calls you within 5 days, they must send you written notice of the amount owed, the creditor's name, and your right to dispute the debt. You can dispute the debt or pay it. If you dispute the debt, you may request verification of the debt within 30 days. If not sent, you can insist the communication about the debt cease. If verification is sent, you may pay the debt or give notice that you will not pay. So again, all this stuff is up front. Bear in mind that when it gets to a debt collector, typically it's no longer the initial issuer of the credit that we're talking about. This is out for collection. Someone has been sold this debt, if you will, that you owe. So again, all the warning signs associated with debt problems are numerous, as you can tell here, is that you're paying only the minimum balance that we already talked about, that you end up paying double or triple the amount in interest over the life of that repayment process. So increasing balances due each month, going deeper and deeper into debt. We don't have to look any further than our own U.S. government, right? Running our rising debt issues that are out there. Missing or alternating payments, so you're paying late or you're missing payments and paying the next month, etc. And they're constantly chasing after you to get you to pay. Intentionally using overdraft protection or taking frequent cash advances, payday loans, etc. Not a good routine to be in. Using savings to pay routine bills such as food. So for your variable expenses, using your savings, drawing down on your savings, receiving second or third payment notices, missed payments, right? Not talking to your partner, your spouse, etc., or only talking about money. These are tremendous relationship killers. They're just absolutely poisonous. Depending upon overtime to meet routine expenses, so you're working more than you really ought to meet your expenses is not a good thing. Using up your savings, diminishing your retirement benefits, somehow, some way, borrowing money to pay old debt, not knowing how much you owe, ignoring the fact that what you owe, how much debt you're actually in. Going over your credit limit on credit cards, having little or no savings for the unexpected. The list just goes on and on. It goes well beyond what we're talking about here. But just the final thing to mention here is that putting off medical or dental visits because you can't afford them right now. This is very, very typical, very, very common, unfortunately. So reasons for indebtedness, this is where we get into the psychoanalytical piece of it, unfortunately. Emotional problems, the need for instant gratification. I see it on TV or I see it online. I want to buy it. I have to buy it. Using money to punish or get even with your spouse, your significant other. Expectation of instant comfort. Overusing installment plans. Keeping up with the Joneses. Overindulging your children. Rather than, spending time with your kids, you buy things for them. Keeping up with your neighbors, again, the keeping up with the Joneses, misunderstanding or lack of communication among family members who has access to the credit cards and who's out there actually accessing using the credit cards without letting other people know about these. The amount of finance charges makes it difficult to repay. The serious consequences that follow would be that you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. It can affect family health. It really is detrimental, if you will. You're taking away from your savings, knowing full well that you're going to need that for some eventuality, something emergency that comes up, or the possibility of retiring at a reasonable age, right? It could result in job loss if it goes too far. If the creditors come after you, you could get your wages garnished. And if you are in any kind of an area where it's sensitive to money, which most jobs are these days, then you could end up losing your job as a result. Educational needs, heavy drinking, neglect of children, marital difficulties, drug abuse, and the bankruptcy that could result from this. Could stem from this, this cascade, this waterfall of issues that continue to mount if you don't meet them head on, right? So these are hard things to talk about, but they're absolutely necessary. So there are ways out, meaning, you do have to pay your debts, and you do have to, get back on an even keel, and so on and so forth. And it's very difficult to do that if you're in a tough spot, but this is where there are helpful agencies out there like consumer credit counseling services that are available, and especially the .orgs that are out there that are available. So there are nonprofits which they're supported by banks, credit unions, merchants, etc. And you can ask your creditors if there's some debt counseling services that you can go to, and they'll help you set up repayment plans, and they can also administer those debt repayment plans for you if you're not, in a position to be able to do it yourself, meaning, in the right, frame of mind or whatever. So how to choose those credit counselors, what services do they offer, is the information free, what are the fees, how will a debt management plan work, how does this actually work to reduce or eliminate to reduce or lower my debt and my interest and fees, etc. What happens if I can't afford to pay? Afford to pay for this service? Will there be a contract? Are your counselors accredited or certified? These are all questions that have to be kind of addressed. They have to be answered. But when you're in this situation and it feels like you're drowning, you do need help. You always remember that there are lifelines out there for you. So the last point, it's actually part of your financial planning too, believe it or not, is bankruptcy. So bankruptcy is not something that you want to go through, but it is a legal process in which either some or all of the debts that you owe are canceled, are written off, if you will. So it's a last resort, and it severely damages your credit rating. But it is a part of the financial planning. If in fact you have to go through it, you have to go through it. This is a bit old, but baby boomers, probably dwindling in numbers, they accounted for about 60% of personal bankruptcies. The average age being it's probably closer to 45 right now, and more likely to be female than male. Women account for about 36% of filers. And when we say it's likely to be female, especially when you start getting into those older cohorts, it's typical. So a record 2 million people declared bankruptcy in 2005, and I don't have the more recent data, but there are a lot of people that apply for bankruptcy, that file for bankruptcy on an annual basis. So there are rules and regulations that kind of go along with this, and different types of bankruptcy that we'll be getting into, but it is a process, and it's not a fun process, but it's absolutely essential if you get to that point. So the point being, don't get to that point. Do whatever you can to avoid this, right? So the different types of bankruptcy, we're talking about personal bankruptcy, and this would be Chapter 7 to start with. The debtor submits a petition to the court listing all of your assets and liabilities and pays your filing fee, known as straight bankruptcy. Many, but not all debts are forgiven. Most assets are sold to pay creditors. you can keep some assets. You get to keep your home, you get to keep your vehicle. After Chapter 7, you may still owe certain taxes, fines, child support, alimony, education loans, of course, are not forgiven. Debts not disclosed to the court if you opt not to reveal that. Again, debts from fraud, embezzlements, and so on and so forth. So you're still on the hook for paying things, but you're off the hook for the most part for most of your creditors, if you will, with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Again, this is called just a straight bankruptcy. It's another term. So Chapter 13 would be a voluntary plan known as the wage earners plan, a variety of other things where payments are made to, again, a trustee, a person that's another person who actually pays your creditors. And typically it's at some agreed upon, lower amount, lower interest, lower payments, and so on and so forth. But it's something that's managed through your trustee, a third party, if you will. So the problem, again, there's costs of the debtor include court costs, attorney's fees, trustees' fees, and other costs that would be associated with it. So the effect of bankruptcy on your job, your future credit, different people have different experiences obtaining credit after they file bankruptcy, and don't confuse again the personal bankruptcy with the business or commercial bankruptcies. Chapter 11 bankruptcy, for example. Many people find it easier to complete bankruptcy forms with the assistance of experienced bankruptcy counsel. Monetary costs associated with filing Chapter 13 bankruptcy include court costs, again, attorney's fees, and the trustees' fees and cost. Not an ideal path to go on, but it is part of your financial plan if you need to go there. Okay, it's better than debtor's prison, which was the way it was in the past.